Hello, my name is Garza. I am a student in the Doctorate of Education in Leadership and Innovation and Continuous Improvement Program for Concordia University, Wisconsin. And this is my presentation will be on Kotter's 8 Steps to Leading Change with an example applied to public education. Let us begin. Kotter's book, Leading Change, has been a center point for academic discourse ever since it was published in 1995, as explained by author Mark Hughes, 2016. The book was listed in Time Magazine's top 25 most influential business management books for 2014. Interestingly, the target audience for Kotter's texts are practitioners who engage in management for their daily profession. Dr. John Kotter says, quote, "I have neither drawn examples nor major ideas from any published source except my own writings, nor tried to cite evidence from other sources to bolster my conclusions." End quote. Kotter, 1996, page X. Despite the work's status as a trade book, Burke, 2016, it has been one of the most cited publications in leading change and transformational leadership in academic articles, Hughes, 2016. Within the field of human resource development, the two primary components are training and development and organization development, Swanson and Holton, 2009, page 5. Kotter's process can fit within both those components of human resource development. This presenter's claims can be strengthened by the second core belief of HRD professionals, which, according to Swanson and Holton, states, quote, "Human expertise is developed and maximized through HRD process and should be applied for the mutual long-term and short-term benefits of the sponsored organizations and individuals involved," 2009. End quote. This presentation will break down each of Kotter's 8 steps, explain the role in transformational leadership, and apply the whole process to an example relating to public education. So, as you can see, our concept map, the main idea is Kotter's 8 steps to leading change. We've broken down, well, we haven't broken down, Kotter broke them down, but we have the 8 steps, and they've been further broken down into other concepts relating to those 8 steps. Kotter's 8 steps to leading change have been broken down into 8 steps. These 8 steps are the following: establishing a sense of urgency, creating the guiding coalition, and developing a vision and strategy, communicating the change vision, empowering employees for broad-based action, generating short-term wins, consolidating gains and producing more change, and finally, anchoring new approaches in the new culture. Kotter, 1996, page 21. Kotter explains that the first 4 steps of his model break down and establish status quo, which have been labeled in the blue boxes. Steps 5 through 7 are when the actual change begins, as indicated by the orange boxes. And this is where the organization introduces new practices. The final step helps make the changes stick. Kotter, 1996, page 22, as indicated by the kind of charcoal boxes. So, creating a sense of urgency is the first step in Kotter's 8 steps to leading change. This is important because you need to determine what the level of competency is and complacency on your staff, your team, as well as the level of urgency. It's also where you identify crisis, potential crisis, or opportunities. So let's break that down any further. Complacency. How complacent are the staff? Are they willing to change? What's the urgency level? Do they feel a sense that something needs to be done? If there's high complacency and low urgency, it means nothing will change. People are set in their ways. So what you need to do as a manager, what you need to do as a leader is create a sense of urgency in order to invoke that change. Also, in the first step, you identify crisis, potential crises, or opportunities. So is there something that's going wrong? Could something go wrong? Or is there opportunities to make something excellent happen? If your followers, if the people can see the crisis, it can create urgency. So the first step of the Kotter's 8 steps to leading change, creating a sense of urgency, establishing a sense of urgency. Second, we have creating the guiding coalition. So who is going to lead this change? Who is going to be, who are going to set the examples? So this can be breaking down into 2 sections: creating a team built to lead and having the team work together. Within a team to lead, Kotter states that you need to consider four things. You consider position, power, expertise, credibility, position, power, expertise, credibility, and leadership. Leadership skills must be present. If there are no leadership skills, You need to either develop from within or hire someone from the outside to lead the change, but you need to have leadership as part of the team. And the team needs to be able to work well together. If you got a group of people that don't work well together, it's not going to work out. Trust one another, develop rapport fast if needed. Back in the day, it was rapport was built over time through golf, family gatherings, Christmas parties, things like that. And while those still go on, in the past, typically, sometimes it was just one parent worked, and so it was easier to reach obligations. But now that both parents are working, both people in a couple are working, maybe there's too many obligations, too many things going on that you can't really build that rapport outside of work as much. And this information is found in Kotter's book, Leading Change. So perhaps you need to find a quick way to build rapport if you haven't already built that over time, working together. Some teams may be relatively new. Some teams may be working together for the past 20 years and already have built that before. So that's what you'll have to determine. So creating the guiding coalition is the second step to Kotter's 8 steps to leading change. The third step is developing a vision and strategy. So what is the why? What are you going to tell your people, your followers? What is the why? The why is super, super important. It motivates people and it creates buy-in. It gets people sold on your idea on what needs to change and why. And also the clarity of the why, what you're going to do, and why you're doing it, reduces time and waste resources. If you start with the vision and say, this is what we're doing, then there's less time trying to figure out, what are we doing exactly? Why are we doing this? It reduces that time and weight and resources and waste. And as someone who's hoping to study Six Sigma and Toyota Production System, the Toyota Way, Lean, all that waste eliminating practices in manufacturing and applying it to public education, this one resonates with me. If we can reduce time and resource waste, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Also, what is the how? How is this going to happen? What is the strategy? So what you need to do and why, but how are you going to accomplish it? And again, that could fall into reducing time and waste resources. If you have a plan, you're spending less time trying to figure things out as you go. And then, this will lead into the fourth step, communicating the vision, the change vision. So the third step is developing a vision and strategy. Kotter's fourth step, and the final step within the fourth step of breaking down the status quo, communicating the change vision. So keep it simple. Keep it simple. You don't eliminate jargon. Don't make it convoluted. Just say what you need to say. Keep it simple. Easier to remember that way. Remember, you might be telling this to thousands of people, to thousands of employees. Repetition and consistency. So your vision can become clutter. I'm sure as a professor, you have tons and tons of emails, and some may be relevant, some may not be. As a public school teacher, I get a lot of emails that don't apply to me, and so it can become clutter. So the vision too can become clutter. But if you build the market share of your followers, of the information they're absorbing by keeping it simple and repeating it, it's going to stick better. So you got to communicate the change vision. You also need to lead by example. If you're preaching a vision and not following it, your followers are going to say, well, why would I need to follow it too? Why would I need to do that? Sorry. So leading by example is a way you can communicate the change vision. So those are the first 4 steps of Kotter's 8 steps to leading change, that break down the status quo, creating a sense of urgency, creating the guiding coalition, developing a vision and strategy, and communicating the change vision. Now we're on to steps 5 through 7. These 3 steps are kind of phase 2, where you actually start initiating the change. When the actual change begins, introducing new practices. So step 5, empowering employees for broad-based action. You need to let your employees do what you want, what the vision. You need to let your let's try that again. You need to make it easy for your employees to carry out the vision that the guiding coalition has created for the organization. Don't box in your employees in. What do I mean by that? Don't make it difficult. Don't make difficult systems to follow. Make it easy for them. You can bring this back to, and there could be an arrow coming to keep it simple. Keep it simple. If you can make the simple process simple, the system simple, it's probably more likely to be followed. Also, formal structures, it should say remove formal structures that make it hard to work towards the vision. Again, make it easy for employees, your followers, to carry out the vision. Easier it is for them, the less time wasted, the less resources wasted, the more likely they are to carry it out. And also empower your employees. That's the first word in there. In Kotter's 5th step, empower your employees. Provide training. If they need help, provide it. If they need training, provide it. And empower your employees to confront superiors who might not fit the vision, or at least feel comfortable going to a superior that they could tell that, hey, maybe this manager isn't really carrying out what we're trying to do here. Those are ways you can empower your employees for broad-based action. Don't keep them boxed in, and empower them by helping them feel, keeping them up to date in knowledge by providing training, or comfortable that they're able to, report, any maybe managers that aren't helping work towards the vision or anything else like that. Toyota is famous for that. Any person can stop the assembly line if they're building a car. Any person, they've empowered their employees for broad-based by saying, if you see something that you think might be wrong, even if you're not 100% sure, stop the line. You're not going to get in trouble. So that's an excellent example of how to empower your employees for broad-based action. Step 6, and this is probably something I could do a little more in my personal life, generating short-term wins. Celebrate those small victories. Dr. Kotter even says that, the more you celebrate wins, your chart's going to kind of go up like that, rather than if you celebrate wins more often, you're going to see a gain in morale over time. Whereas otherwise, if you celebrate one win, it's going to go back down. So praise and rewards. Praise the people that are doing what you need them to do. It can even be as simple as a shout out in email, like shout out to accounting for getting this bill paid or something. And rewards, small rewards. But rewards depends on what it is. Maybe if they're sold $1 billion or something, maybe a little $5 gift card wouldn't be too appropriate. Maybe dinner gift card, but I'm not a manager. I'm just a school teacher. But praise and rewards can help generate the short-term wins that will keep that momentum going on your vision. And also, generate short-term wins is a time for reflection and correction. If there's something that celebrating those wins lets you slow down and say, okay, what went well? What do we do right here? And maybe correct things that didn't go as well, so you can celebrate more wins in the future. So step number 6 is to generate short-term wins. Step 7, the second to last step in the whole process of leading change, and the final step in actually introducing new change, is consolidating gains and producing more change. So continue with more changes. Don't get complacent. Like as established in step 1. Keep it going with more changes. Use that momentum to keep it going, and develop more leadership from inside, or bring more in from the outside. So continue developing leaders from within your organization to help carry out that change, or if you need outside help to carry out new change, or continue the change, bring in leaders from outside. And the final step of Kotter's 8-step process, which is also it's its own phase 3. Helping make the changes stick. So anchoring new approaches in the culture, that's the final step. Culture change comes at the end, not at the start. Dr. Kotter says in his book that he thought for a long time that he thought that culture started with a culture change. It's at the end. You can't force that and start like, oh, this is a new culture, new everything. There's too much at once. You got to go through the process and use that. Hey, this has worked, so we're implementing. This is for real now. We're keeping this. So it comes at the end of the organization, at the end of the change, not the start. The change in culture. and make required changes to sustain new approaches in culture. If things need to change, um, in order to sustain the new approaches in culture, then make that happen. Sometimes it even means getting rid of the wrong people, or excuse me, getting rid of the people that might be the wrong fit for the vision. Brings it back kind of, again, we could have another arrow to confront bosses who don't fit the vision. Might have to let go of some people, you might have to hire some people, but make those changes required to make sure that the changes, or excuse me, to sustain the new vision, or excuse me, new approaches in the culture to after the change has been implemented. And that's the final step in Kotter's 8 steps to leading change. So I'm going to bring this back to kind of my personal experience that I've seen at my middle school that I teach at. I teach at a Title I middle school in the town I live, and we had a big problem with cell phones, which is nothing new. But they really decided to make a big change and do something about it. So, as Burke says in his book, and as Burke says in his book, Organization Change. Oh, it's blurred out, but you know the one. You signed it. The external environment is constantly changing, even in an institution as traditional and as established as a public school. Burke 2018. So, if things are changing on the outside, you've got to adapt on the inside as well. And so, something that's changed externally, very recently in the grand scheme of the whole timeline of since public school started, or since public education started becoming mainstream through Martin Luther's efforts to establish education. Within the last 10 or so years are cell phones. When I was in high school, my 10-year reunion was just last few weeks ago, actually. But when I was in high school, cell phones were just becoming a thing. I remember the first iPhone. I thought it was so cool that some of my classmates had iPhones, but no one really had cell phones then. So it wasn't much of an issue. We didn't see the damage it could cause in the classrooms, and not just in the classrooms, but outside the classrooms as well between students. So after last year, or before last year, my administration team had decided the cell phones got to go. We gotta make a way to, the students on the cell phones. Yes, the students, were asked to put away their phones, maybe took it for the class period in the past. But my administration team, as principals and assistant principals, decided that it was time for a change. We had to make something work. And while making sure kids don't have their cell phones might be a little elementary compared to, say, Luther leading the Protestant Revelation, or a company making a huge change in their Fortune 500 billion-dollar a year company. It still is a change that followed these 8 steps. So I was very impressed with how my bosses handled this. And after reading about Kotter's 8 steps, I kind of see, okay, this is what they did to make this change stick. They created a sense of urgency. So they assess what's the level of complacency. Well, it's kind of high amongst the veteran staff from what I have seen. Again, this is all from my personal experience. I'm not able to cite any sources for what I've seen at my middle school, but complacency was kind of high, and urgency might have been a little low. So they created urgency. Look, you're spending way too. They would told the teachers, look, you're spending a lot of time managing these cell phones, taking them, we had to put them in a pouch. We used to put them in a pouch. We still do. But it's kid has phone. It could be up to 5 minutes out of a 40-minute class period of bureaucracy. That's what 1/8, 12.5%. And as I said about eliminating waste, eliminating time, that's where's that box? Somewhere around here. Boom. I don't want. I want to reduce time waste. Absolutely. So they created the sense of urgency. You'll have more class time. It'll be less frustrating to manage. You'll score. There's some research, I don't have a source for this claim, but perhaps there's research that students will do better in the classroom academically. And also there's a problem with bullying too. Then they had to make that, they had to do what they could to get that to stop. So they eliminated the complacency by creating that urgency. Oh, you know what? Some teachers thought, I've been teaching this long, but I'm on board for this change. They identified the crises, time waste, poor academic results, bullying in the classroom and outside the classroom. Outside as in like social media, they would say just horrible things. It's crazy. Um, so if the people could see the crisis, then increases literacy. Yeah, these are a big problem. Some teachers would, my understanding is some teachers would just let them use it, whatever. But no, they created that urgency. So they told us this is, they said this is what's going on with these cell phones. Then they created the guiding coalition. So after the principals created a sense of urgency, they created the guiding coalition. They got the instructional coaches on board as well, saying, yeah, coaching the pedagogy, but for management, like let's follow through with this. Make sure the new teachers and old teachers alike are on board, the veteran teachers. So they created a guiding coalition. They created a team to lead the principals and the two instructional coaches. They considered position power. They're our bosses, so we kind of have to listen. They also considered expertise. Those instructional teachers or the coaches have been teaching for 20 plus years. One person's been teaching for 30 years, longer than I've been alive. So they probably know a thing or two about how to do this whole teaching thing. Credibility, again, falls into kind of goes with the position, power, and expertise. And leadership. We had our principal on board. Within a school building, I think that's as much leadership as you can get in one person. And leadership skills must be present, which they were. This team has worked long. The team works together. They've been working together for, my understanding is, at least 5 years. So that rapport has probably been developed already. But they had that guiding coalition. After they created the guiding coalition, they developed that vision and the strategy to carry out that vision. So what are we doing? We're getting rid of the cell phones. Why? Better test scores, better use of time in class, less bullying, less stress for the teachers. Motivates people. Oh, it'll make my job easier. I'm okay. I'm listening. I'm on board. And the clarity reduces the time and the resources. So yes, the why is to help reduce resources or reduce waste, but the clarity, like this is what we're doing. This is if this happens, with the how, this is our process. We want everybody to follow this process. It reduces time waste and resource waste and all that planning time because this is the process that's going to be followed. So developed a vision and strategy, and they communicated that vision with us. Meetings, emails, and it was repeat over and over. I remember every time it seems like every time I got in a meeting with principal or the staff meeting, remember this is what we're doing. Emails. Hey, good job with the cell phones. Well, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but they communicated that vision. They kept it simple. See a phone, put in a pouch. It's put in a pink pouch. So there's little bubble mailers that will put the phone in and seal it, give it back to the student, and the 8th hour teacher opens it before the student leaves for the day. Kept it simple, nothing crazy. If there's excessive amount of parent communication involved, that's when it was handed over to one of the office workers, one of the office secretaries, to make that communication for us to keep it simple, more simple for the teachers. Repetition and consistency. They were on it. They were on it. If they observed it, they didn't see it. They say this. We talked about. They repeated the vision, and made sure it wasn't clutter by telling us so many times. And it led by example too. I saw, we if we expected students to not be on their phones as much, teachers were also expected to not be on their phones. So we're like, put the phone away until lunch or in between classes if you need. They weren't like completely black and white. They're like, if you maybe are expecting there might be an emergency or if there's something on, like it's okay to have it on you, but they really pushed to not have your cell phones on you during class time. And I'd make an effort to put mine in, out of reach and not in my pocket when I have students in my classroom. And that's those first 4 steps. They create a sense of urgency. Cell phones are, making your job harder. That's enough for me to buy in. Where's the buy-in? It's around here somewhere. Oh, it's over here, but you get the idea. Creating the guiding coalition, they got the principal, 2 assistant principals, and the 2 instructional coaches as most experienced, credibility, and leadership you can get in a group of people in my building. Developed the vision and strategy, and they carried it out, kept it by keeping it simple and repetition and consistency. Then they empowered us for broad-based action. They didn't box us in. They made easy systems for us to follow. If this happens the first time with this kid, put it in this pouch, give it back to them. If it happens again, put it in the pouch. We'll have an office work an office aide, come get it. Happens a third time, this happens, and so forth. We provide training where needed. If they had opportunities, like, hey, if you need some help with this, the first couple of months of it, refresher after school, 15 minutes, just come by. We'll keep it quick, just a refresher. Also, you can check on the Google Drive, shared drive under policies and systems. We got this document that kind of outlines. They had in our we call it the playbook. They had a printout. Hey, if this is what happens with the phones, this is the steps you need to follow. So they really made it accessible and easy for us to get that training or information. And we would feel this never was relevant because our bosses are pretty good. They're quite excellent, and they weren't going against the grain. That's probably also easy to manage with only 5 people compared to a large organization that might have a lot more. So I didn't ever feel the need to do this, but I would feel comfortable bringing it up if I felt like I needed to. They generated short-term wins, praise and rewards. Hey, like, we're seeing a lot less issues with phones, and the bullies have gone down. Like, good job, everybody. Like, we're making it happen. This, there wasn't really any rewards, honestly, but the reward is our job is easier. I will take that every day. And then reflection and correction. So I wasn't personally a part of any of that, but I would like to think that they did do that. The administration team did reflect on it because they tweaked the policy just a little bit to make it a little more easier for us. We don't have to log as much anymore in Power School, which is always nice because I'd forget a lot if I'm honest. After this, so in these steps 5 and 6, they've been implementing the change. Implementing change, this process went on for about a year. I mean, it still goes on now, but I would say presently we're in step 8. But step 7 was consolidating gains and producing more change. So now the same coalition has implemented another discipline system, or this told us we're going back to Make Your Day, which we had, which is a discipline. It's a system of discipline that's made to keep a student accountable. So continue with more changes and developing more leadership from within. I don't believe I'm in a position to critique my bosses. However, we had an excellent teacher who was not hired for assistant principal position, and she left to go do that somewhere else. So, again, not my call, but develop more leadership from within or bring in more people from the outside to help lead those changes. And then finally, anchoring new approaches in the culture. So culture change comes at the end, not the start. Okay, now we have this culture of change that we are able to carry out these awesome things. We're going to do it again. And they made changes required to stay in those approaches. So as we go on there, I've noticed quite a bit of difference of how they're approaching these changes. They're making it more streamlined, they're more consistent. So they're making those changes so that we're able to follow and sustain the new changes in culture. So yeah, and I'm glad that we did that. I've had a lot less discipline issues when it comes to cell phones, and I haven't heard. It's not my job to do investigating for severe bullying or anything, but I haven't heard much about it lately, so that's good. So that's just an example of how Kotter's 8 steps have been implemented in a public education setting. So those are Kotter's 8 steps. Just to kind of recap, first step is to create a sense of urgency, then to create the guiding coalition, develop a vision and strategy, communicate the change vision, empower employees for broad-based action, generate short-term wins, consolidating gains and producing more change, and then finally, anchoring new approaches in culture, because culture comes at the end of the change process, not at the beginning. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time and your feedback, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.